Hi everyone, Happy New Year, Happy 2017. I'm really looking forward to a fun, amazing year ahead for us. And I thought this year I'd bring something new to the practice, and that is video blogs. So I thought our first topic for 2017 should be on perfectionism. It's something that I myself have struggled with for a long time. I find so many around me struggling with this perfectionism, and it's something that actually can be impairing your health and preventing you from succeeding in life. So why not discuss it? There was a study that came out, it was about a decade ago, looking at adolescents that had daily headaches. And what they found was that the most common feature that these individuals had was perfectionism. And last week I saw a patient, and it was something that was just amazing to me. She described perfectionism in such a way that her perfectionism actually induced a migraine. So what happened was this woman, who is incredibly lovely, I've known her for a very long time, and is very well respected in her work, was doing her kind of daily work as kind of planned, and was working really hard, and if anything was doing the work of two or three people because that day was extremely busy at the office. So she was faxing different forms in and documents to different clients of hers, and unfortunately one of her faxes went to the wrong client. So this fax contained some confidential information, and as you can imagine, it went to the wrong client, so it made her really upset. So she picked up the phone, called the client that she sent the fax to, and said, "Could you please destroy the document?" And then spoke to the client who had the confidential information in that fax. And the client said, "Don't worry about it. It's okay. Mistakes happen. There was really nothing that important in that document. It's fine." She thought to herself, "I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that." And her first thought was this negative mantra of, "I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that." Her coworkers, who saw her kind of distressed, said, "Don't worry about it. It happens. We all make mistakes." But she kept up with this negative mantra, "I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that." Well, what's interesting is she started noticing that her neck started getting tight, and then later in the day began developing a headache. And the headache built and built, and so she thought, let me just take, an Advil, drank a cup of coffee. The headache didn't go away. Her mind continued with this mantra, "I shouldn't have done that." She said, "I can't believe I did that. That was so dumb." And she really started kind of beating herself up. She got home that night, and the headache continued on and eventually turned into a severe migraine. She took one of her stronger prescription medications, and as you can imagine, it was so severe that, quite honestly, the med really didn't help that much. So she went to bed and suffered all night in severe pain, came to see me the next day, and I had offered her Botox injections, which she normally had gotten, but Botox unfortunately works as a preventative, and had to give her a stronger medication to break the headache, which really kind of broke my heart because I thought, could this have been prevented? And so we talked through this idea of perfectionism because, quite honestly, she admitted to being perfectionistic. She says, I'm well respected in my company. In fact, everyone depends on me so much they give me all the work to do because they know I'll get it done. It's a classic perfectionistic feature, just like I'm the one that people give work to because I'm the one that gets it done. Have you heard the phrase that if you need to get something done, ask the busiest person you know? And that's typically because that person's perfectionistic. So unfortunately, her perfectionistic nature actually triggered the migraine because she pushed herself into such a state, and it was such a self-defeating kind of state at that point in time because, quite honestly, what can you do? She already sent the fax out. There was nothing she could have done in that. So I thought, why not make this a topic for our first video blog? Because it's something I see so much. I myself have struggled with it, and I can share with you some tips on how to help your perfectionism and how to really improve your well-being so you can suffer less and you can actually live a more successful life. So the first strategy I want to teach you is about this really important concept, not worrying what other people think. And I know that sounds really counterintuitive because we should do things in a way that we are respected and valued, right? But I'm going to take you back to an example in my life and help you understand why stop worrying is such an important feature to combating your perfectionism. So if you don't know my journey, I'll give you a really brief story about my background. So I was born in Kampala, Uganda. And at a very young age, we were actually asked to leave the country. And it was under the regime of Idi Amin, and I was very young. I was only like 9 months old, and I was actually smuggled out of the country. Well, during this time of exit, we kind of had to find a place to go. And thankfully, my dad's very, very close family friend offered some help here in Chicago. So it was really kind of him because my dad was a physician in East Africa. My mom was a home economics teacher. They were very fearful of leaving, and we left really with no money in our pockets. And this very kind family member welcomed us and helped my dad get a residency position here in Chicago. So my dad started his residency over again after practicing for 10 years in East Africa. And my mom, because she quite couldn't find employment for herself in her traditional field that she was practicing in, started working at Motorola, putting gold plates on beepers from midnight to 6 a.m. about 4 to 5 nights a week, because we really needed to have income coming into the household. It was myself and my older sister that my family needed to support. So during this journey and this very kind of trying, difficult time early in our stay in Chicago, my mom was very, very solid in her thinking about the importance of educating her children and teaching them a really important mantra of working hard. Because what happened over the next few years, my dad was able to land a really nice job in an office and was able to work as a physician here in the US. And my mom was able to quit her job at Motorola and take care of us. And she learned early on that hard work really does pay off. And education is really important because if you are kicked out of the country or anything happens in your life, education is always something you can fall back on. So as I was in my early years, in my teens, and as I entered high school and eventually college, my mom was always telling us to work hard. My issue was that working hard to me meant being a little perfectionistic. I had a hard time kind of letting go. I worked so hard that I couldn't take anything less than an A. And I even won an award in 6th grade as the hardest working student in the class. And it was really interesting because I viewed working hard and being perfectionistic as something I needed to do to succeed in life. Because as I was taught, working hard and getting an education will allow you to have safety. You'll have a job, you'll have a career. With that, you can have a house and you can have a car and take care of your needs. So early on, I was taught work hard, but then I kind of taught myself to be perfectionistic to make those goals kind of be achievable and obtainable. Well, what ended up happening was that as I became more and more perfectionistic, unfortunately, I found out that perfectionism actually had a toll on me. So I went from college and entered medical school with this perfectionistic nature. In college, I was actually in the business school. And the first year in business school, I thought, I'm not sure I love this. I think I want to do science. I love the field of science. So I remember speaking to my counselor in my first year in business school at University of Illinois, Champaign, and I said, I think I want to switch out of the business school and do something in science. And I remember her saying to me, why would you do that? It's so hard to get into the business school at University of Illinois. Why don't you stay with it? And I said, I don't know, I've got this drive to go into science. So what ended up happening was I shifted out of the business school and I started studying science, and I majored in economics and I majored in biology as my second major. The reason this is important is I thought economics wasn't going to serve me well. Well, I'll be honest, we learned something in economics that was so important. It's that concept of supply and demand. And the idea is that if supply goes up, typically it's because demand is low. And when demand is high, the supply of anything goes down, right? Simple, supply and demand. Well, what's interesting is as I continued into my career, I realized that perfectionism and success are like a supply and demand curve. And I'll get to that. But first I'm going to get into this idea about stopping worrying what other people think about you and how reducing your kind of concern about others actually helps you focus on yourself. So have you heard what other people think of you is really none of your business? Well, this is going to apply to this concept. So the counselor who was just trying to help me make a decision was really adamant about me not leaving business school. But in my heart, I really felt that I had something else I was supposed to pursue. And I'm really happy that that first step of following my heart was so beneficial to me, because had I not listened to my inner voice of switch out of the business school and go into liberal arts and science and study what you really want, economics and biology, I actually wouldn't have followed the path that eventually was going to lead to a really important, I think, life shift. And so as I moved forward, the first step was listening to my voice and not being scared and not feeling like I had to stay safe, stay in that business school. This scenario played out again because as I was in my neurology training program, it actually played out in my last year of neurology training. And what happened was, in my last year, I decided to do a paper on Botox for headaches. And remember, I was still a little touch perfectionistic, and I was kind of hard driving even at that time. And I thought, Botox is fascinating. It actually works for so many patients that have headache. At that point, it was very investigational. And I talked to my chief resident at that time because I was actually going to be replacing her as chief resident in my senior year in my neurology training program. And I said, I think I'm going to do a paper on Botox for headaches. And she said to me, why would you do that? Why would you do a paper on Botox for headaches? Because actually Botox is given cosmetically. And what if it doesn't work? What if Botox is considered to be completely placebo? And placebo is when something that really doesn't have scientific data behind it has an effect on the system that isn't due to the drug or to the product or the injection. It has to do with the mind kind of helping heal the individual. And so I said, well, even if it's a placebo, I really feel like I should study it. And so even though she made me feel a little uneasy in my seat, she made me think, well, doctors might mock you. What's going to happen to your reputation as you publish this paper and it's maybe viewed to be a placebo? Won't they make fun of you? I thought, you know what? My heart is telling me to follow this. So that was the second time in my life I proved to myself that I'm not going to worry what other people think. I'm going to focus on what I believe is true. And I'm going to actually study this. And why this is such an important story is that was 2002 when the paper was published in the Journal of Pain. I began injecting patients for 8 years and getting amazing results. Patients were coming in and saying, gosh, I don't know what it is about this Botox injection, but my headache and my neck pain is improving, and I don't know why. And because of that, I was able to reduce narcotic prescriptions, steroid prescriptions, and really help encourage dietary change and lifestyle change and yoga and meditation for patients. Because they weren't in so much pain, they could actually do those things. Well, it didn't kind of get really well received until probably 2010. In 2010, Botox injections were FDA approved for chronic migraine. So for 8 years, I injected patients, and quite honestly, some doctors did have disbelief. They kind of did mock me a little bit, saying, she's one of those few doctors that's injecting that toxin, and I don't really know if this is going to work. And I think it might be a placebo. Well, lo and behold, the studies were done, and the FDA approved it for chronic migraine. And I was so happy. It was a really, really happy day for me because I thought I followed my heart there. So step one is stop worrying about what other people think, because quite honestly, you'll see things happen that you won't even believe. I'm going to take you back to my first year in medical school. I was a first year medical student, and I actually started suffering with insomnia. And I didn't know why at that time. And as I've told you, I was quite a perfectionist. And the reason why is I was too hard driving. I wanted everything to happen a certain way. And when I had control and I had easier classes, in college, the classes weren't as hard as they were in medical school. I was able to get, the straight A's pretty easily by working hard. Well, you get to medical school and you're around a bunch of people that are really bright and they're really hard driving and they're very successful. And you're taking, histology and anatomy and all these really, tough classes. And it was really hard for me to get 100% on everything, right? So what happened was I started to get stressed out and I had problems falling asleep. And for those of you versed in Ayurveda, I became very vata, very excitable. The air and space elements picked up. And that windy, excitable head led to problems falling asleep. And because I was really hard driving, the wind energy picked up my pitta dosha, my fire, my hard driving nature, which was already, kind of high because that energy goes up when you're perfectionistic. So it didn't take a lot for me to have problems falling asleep and then eventually problems staying asleep too. So I started studying Ayurveda at that time because quite honestly, I didn't want to be on medications. I wanted to find a solution to why I suffered. And it was in those beautiful Ayurvedic textbooks that I learned about the Vata dosha, the Pitta dosha. I started doing things like Abhyanga massages and really working on my mind. I would say a mantra to myself at bedtime: I'm at peace, I rest well, I'm enjoying my time in my beautiful bed. Instead of worrying about how long I'd been laying there with my eyes open, I started just enjoying the comfort of my bed and telling myself eventually I'll fall asleep. Well, with doing that and drinking some cardamom milk before bedtime, I really started sleeping well. And it was amazing to me how just working on my mind and understanding my nature truly helped me overcome my insomnia. So what I want you to know is that perfectionism can have an effect on you that you won't even realize until it's too late. So strategy number 2, outside of stopping worrying about what other people think of you, is to start being compassionate with yourself. You know what happens when you're compassionate? Is you stop criticizing yourself. You stop judging yourself. You actually start to look at yourself as a human being and saying, I'm just doing the best I can at this moment in time. For those of you who had a chance to watch the Dr.Oz show, there was a segment I did on stress. And I spoke about a woman who was an intense stressor. And she was so hard driving. We talked to her about using a mantra. So the mantra on the Dr.Oz show was, I'm doing the best I can at this moment in time. And I remember saying to her, repeat this mantra, because it's something that we don't realize we need to do is start with ourselves first. So being compassionate with yourself really allows you to be compassionate then with everyone else around you. And if we stop beating ourselves up and we stop being tough on ourselves, we'll actually stop beating everyone else up and being tough on them. So have you heard the phrase, when I'm around her, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells? It's this interesting conversation that I've had with many others about perfectionistic people. And when you walk, on eggshells around somebody, that means that that person is giving you a feeling of unease. And that's not the point. We don't want other people to do things because we're so tough on them. We want everyone around us to be at ease. And if they're at ease, it's because we're at ease. But we have to start with ourselves first. So principle 2 is compassion. The third thing that goes right along with that is being joyful. If we're joyful with ourselves and we're enjoying our own being and we're enjoying life, it's amazing what happens. Being joyful, it's so interesting for a perfectionist person, is hard to do. And I remember early in my training, one of my Vajas, who's an Ayurvedic kind of advisor, told me, I want to ask you something. I think he could sense I was perfectionistic. He said, I want to ask you something. He said, how much time on your off time do you have, just having fun? How much time do you take away for joyful activity? And I thought about it, and he said, I want you to think about your on time as your time you're at work, at the office, seeing patients or going to conferences and lectures. And then think of your off time when you're with your family, your friends, and what percentage of the time are you just relaxing and having fun? And I thought about it, and I was like, I'm kind of intense in my off time. And my off time, by the way, included playing competitive tennis. Now, I was, in high school, a really driven tennis player, and I insisted on being, first singles in varsity, I was so driven. And I remember thinking, gosh, I've really been hard driving when it comes to my tennis game. And even in my off time as an adult, my tennis games were really competitive and really intense and around intense people. And he asked me to stop playing competitive tennis. And I thought, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. That's like what I do. And what's so interesting is that I had started doing yoga in medical school because of my insomnia. And I started replacing my tennis game with yoga. And not, hot yoga, not intense yoga, but relaxing, restorative yoga. I spent more time meditating. I spent more time with my breath and deep breathing. And lo and behold, I started feeling better. So this is one of those things you can start doing to be joyful, be compassionate, is add in something restorative, add in a practice every single day of deep breathing, yoga, and meditation. And if you can't do all of it, just spend 2-3 minutes in silence. It doesn't take a lot to start looking inwards and being compassionate and adding joy. Start looking at things that are funny. Read funny books. Watch some really funny movies on TV. Laugh with your kids. Do something really silly with them. It doesn't always have to be serious and structured. Put on some music and just dance. That can be really joyful. And I do that sometimes in the kitchen. I'll just play some fun songs and dance with my kids while making dinner. So add joy. That'll really help with the perfectionistic nature. I'm going to read a quote actually from a book because it makes me think of this great book that I read and actually chose it for my book club. It's a book called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And it's really helpful because it actually helps me understand how a social worker who ended up getting a PhD discusses this concept of perfectionism actually decreasing your ability to succeed in life. So let me read this, and it's actually more than a quote. It's a little paragraph in her book. So what she says is this: perfectionism is not the key to success. In fact, research shows that perfectionism hampers achievement. Perfectionism is correlated with depression, anxiety, addiction, and life paralysis or missed opportunities. The fear of failing, making mistakes, not meeting expectations, and being criticized keeps us outside of the arena where healthy competition and striving unfolds. Isn't that brilliant? She's amazing. She's amazing. Her whole book is filled with so many important points. And this one really made sense to me as I thought about what I've done over the last few years. And I'd like you to think about success. When you think about success, typically you think of, what do you think of? Making money, buying a nice house, buying a fancy car, maybe some nice clothes, going on nice vacations. I have to say, I think success to me is different. It's not that. And my last year in my practice was my most successful year. And I'll tell you what I mean by success. Success was really finding value in what you do and being able to touch and help the lives of those around you in a way that just makes you feel really good. And it's not about how much I earned last year. It's about the fact that I was able to touch the lives of many people. From speaking to physicians as a speaker for pharmaceutical companies and being kind of one of the top speakers at a pharmaceutical company because of my message and touching the lives of so many physicians, to eventually being on faculty for that pharmaceutical company and training doctors on how to deliver better care to their patients. And then from that, actually finding a way into the world of speaking through working with institutions like the Diamond Headache Clinic and Northwestern, teaching nurse practitioners and family practice doctors and medical students even who are on their way to learning and are just kind of learning how to use approaches of Eastern medicine with Western medicine in their practice. I was able to do that also. And on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, I started teaching providers, neurologists, child psychiatrists, and even a psychologist on how to use Eastern medicine with Western medicine to really improve their own well-being and the well-being of patients around them. And then I was able to add my role as a really dedicated Ayurvedic practitioner to move into a position as spokesperson and chief medical officer of Ancient Healthcare, which is an amazing company looking to help so many understand how Eastern medicine, this Ayurvedic medicine, can impact the well-being of themselves, their friends, their family, and really change the course of your life. And as my year progressed, I couldn't even believe, because I didn't think it could get any better. I was asked to be on Dr.Oz, and I did an episode on stress and the subconscious mind. Because, the shift is happening, whether we realize it or not. From pharmaceutical companies to healthcare institutions, to shows like Dr.Oz, everyone wants to hear about what you can do to connect with yourself, to heal your mind and body, and really get to the root of disease. And I really feel blessed, so blessed and so honored and so grateful that I can do this work. So, what's the fourth thing? There's more to helping your perfectionism, because I want you to succeed. And I want you to think about what I said. Perfectionism actually impairs your health. It actually impairs your success. Perfectionism is often a fear. It's fear-based. It's a fear of criticism. It's a fear of being judged. And I want you to look at your perfectionism and say, why am I fearful? Why am I worried about speaking my own mind? And I think of Mahatma Gandhi at this time, because Mahatma Gandhi said some amazing things, and one of his quotes really was about this fear of being criticized and judged, and this idea of, people mocking you for what you say. And I've realized, and it takes time, but if you speak your voice, you speak your true language, people will stop mocking you, and people will actually start asking you what you did and start wanting to hear about how you can share your message with them to help them in their worlds. So stay with it. So the fourth thing I want to say is, why do I recommend supplements? Because a lot of people ask about the Ayurvedic herbals and, why I'm so passionate about them. And I take these for myself. I recommend them for everyone I see. My family knows I'm kind of obsessed about taking supplements, and I recommend that they take the supplements. And even if I'm at a dinner party, I start telling people to start taking things like triphala and turmeric. The Cool Mind product, Zero Cool Mind, that product is a product that actually really helps with this Pitta dosha, the fire state. It's got ingredients in there like amalaki. Amalaki is Indian gooseberry. It reduces that heat in your body. It kind of is an anti-aging fruit. It's one of the most rejuvenative fruits. I highly recommend it if you want to stay looking and feeling young. It is beautiful. It's so safe to take, and it's really got this power in reducing the fire state, the Pitta dosha, and eventually your perfectionistic nature, because it's all linked together. It's paired in the Cool Mind formula with turmeric. And I think everyone here has heard about turmeric. It's one of the strongest, most anti-inflammatory herbs, and it's actually a root known to mankind. The studies are phenomenal. It's being studied now for Alzheimer's. It's being studied in different cases of cancer, like breast cancer, colon cancer. It's unbelievable, the data behind turmeric. I can't even believe it. So I take it every day myself. And turmeric blended with amalaki is just incredible. It's just a great combination. If you add a little black pepper to your turmeric, not only in your cooking, and we have black pepper added into the turmeric formulation of Cool Mind, it actually augments the absorption of turmeric by like 1,000-fold. So that's why that combo is together. So if you're taking it, it's 2 caps twice a day with your meals that I recommend after you've completed your eating. And if you're not taking it, consider it and work on the other things I've told you to work on. It could really help your perfectionistic nature. And the last thing I'm going to tell you to do is get educated. Get educated. Read some books. If you haven't read the Mysterious Mind book that I wrote, please read it. I want you to learn. I spent 4 years writing the book because, I've worked on my perfectionistic nature, but I was, at the time when I was writing the book, it was a few years ago, I was pretty perfectionistic. And it's over the last 3 to 4 years, I've really, really worked on reducing that nature of mind. And I think that's where I've really succeeded in what my mission is. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of great information in that book. It took me 4 years to write, 10 years to study the material that's in that book. Read. Pick up Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly. Great information that's going to help you achieve your goals. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm here with this journey. I'm here to help you. I have actually a quote I want to end with, and it's a quote that's written, and I thought it kind of captured the thoughts that I was trying to project in this video blog. And this is the quote. "The road to life twists and turns, and no 2 directions are ever the same. Yet our lessons come from the journey, not from the destination." Don Williams, Jr. I love that quote. So remember that, life is a journey. So, please buckle up. But I ask you, be joyful and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. If you're not enjoying the ride, you're working too hard. You're being too perfectionistic. Once you start enjoying the ride and allowing yourself to be creative, you're going to live in your essence of who you are. And life is just going to bring things to you that you just will be so surprised. You'll have no idea because you couldn't even envision these things happening for you. So my goal for you is to have a year that's pain-free, that's blissful, that's successful, and just really honors who you are. So I love you all. I look forward to seeing you soon. Until next time, be well, my friends. Namaste.